Snow moved through the forest on her hands and knees. Her white hair was messy with leaves and dirt. Her bare feet made no sound on the cold, frozen ground. She followed the smell of deer just like the 40 wolves running next to her. Their breath made little clouds in the cold winter air. She was hunting. She was part of the pack. She was home. The human world where she was born 10 years ago was almost forgotten now. Only small pieces of pain and being left alone came back sometimes in dreams. Where are you watching from? I hope you've never known what it's like to be thrown away by the people who should have kept you safe. The huge white wolf led the pack. His body was twice as big as any normal wolf. Snow followed close behind him, just like she had done since she was 8 years old, when he found her dying in these woods. He carried her to the den in his mouth that first night. He was gentle even though he was so big. The pack accepted his choice without asking questions. Whatever he was, everyone followed him completely. Snow had no words anymore. She made sounds like growls and whines to talk. She used her body to show what she meant. She hunted with her teeth and nails. She slept in a den under an old tree, safe and warm against fur. This was life. This was enough. The white wolf howled to tell the pack to spread out. Snow moved left, staying low to the ground. Her gray eyes watched for movement. There, a young deer, strong but new to the world. The pack closed in like they had practiced. Snow's job was to push animals toward the stronger wolves. She jumped out from hiding with a sound more like an animal than human. This scared the deer right into the white wolf's path. The kill was quick. The pack ate in order. The white wolf first, then the other strong males, then females, and finally Snow. She had stopped feeling sick about eating raw meat years ago. It was food. It kept her alive. After eating, the pack rested in an open space. Snow lay against the white wolf's side. Her fingers were buried in his thick fur. She listened to his heartbeat. Warm, solid, safe. He was the only thing that stayed the same since that terrible night when her father left her in the forest to die. She pressed closer to him, and he made a low sound of happiness. If Snow still thought like a human, she might have wondered why this wolf was so much bigger than the others. Why he seemed to understand her in ways that were more than normal animal smartness. Why he sometimes looked at her with eyes that held too much knowing. But she had forgotten how to wonder about such things. The sound of human voices broke the quiet. Snow's head snapped up. Her body got tight. The white wolf jumped to his feet right away. A warning growl came from deep inside him. The pack scattered into positions around Snow to protect her. 5 men pushed through the trees. They wore strange clothes. They carried metal cages on wheels, ropes with loops, and tools for catching things. "There she is!" one shouted. The wild girl from the stories. Snow understood the feeling, if not the words. They had come for her. They wanted to take her. She showed her teeth and made an angry sound, dropping down low. The white wolf stood between Snow and the men. His huge body was like a living wall. 40 wolves made a wall they couldn't get through. "Those are real wolves," a nervous voice said. "They'll attack. We have sleeping darts. The girl is worth the risk. Smart people in the capital will pay lots of money to study a human raised by wolves." Fear flooded through Snow. They wanted to cage her, take her from her pack. She had been left alone once. She would not be taken. Something inside her broke open. Power she never knew she had exploded outward. Her voice, not used for years except for animal sounds, made a single word that skipped speech completely. "Help!" It wasn't human language. It was older, more basic, a call that went straight to the heart of every wolf for miles around. The forest exploded with movement. Wolves poured in from every direction, not just Snow's pack, but wolves from nearby areas, from faraway dens, from hunting grounds miles away. In minutes, over 100 wolves surrounded the clearing, all focused on the 5 men. The men's faces went white. "This isn't natural, run!" They ran away, leaving their tools behind in fear. The wolves chased them to the forest's edge, making sure the danger was gone. When the forest was safe again, Snow fell down. Using that power had taken something important from her. She was weak, shaking, and barely awake. The white wolf was at her side right away, holding her up with his body. Snow pressed her face into his fur, shocked by what she had done. She had called them, told them what to do. How? And then the white wolf did something impossible. His body under her hands began to change. Fur became skin. His shape shifted, bones moving and changing. Snow pushed herself backward in shock, watching as the wolf became a man. A man who was huge, easily 6.5 feet tall, with silver white hair that fell past his shoulders. Ice blue eyes that were somehow familiar even though the face was unfamiliar. Powerfully built, with scars from fights, and completely comfortable with the change. "Snow," he said, and his voice was deep and gentle and somehow right. "Those men were going to take you. I couldn't protect you properly as a wolf, not against human weapons." Snow stared at him. Her mind struggled to understand what she was seeing. The white wolf was human, had always been human. She made a sound between an angry growl and a cry and tried to run, but her legs were weak, and she barely made it 3 steps before falling. He caught her before she hit the ground. "Easy, you're safe. I promise." Snow fought against his hold, all animal fear and feeling tricked. "I'm Fenrir," he said quietly, not letting go but not hurting her. "I've been protecting you for 10 years. That hasn't changed." Snow fought harder, making sounds of worry. "Liar, trick, not pack, not safe. I couldn't show myself before," Fenrir continued. His voice stayed steady and calm. "It's against ancient law, but those men forced me to act. I won't let anyone take you." Over Fenrir's shoulder, Snow saw the rest of the pack watching. They didn't seem surprised by his change. They had known. They had all known except her. The trick was complete. Snow went limp in Fenrir's arms, not because she accepted it, but because she was too tired and shocked. Her eyes closed and darkness took her. When Snow woke, she was moving. Strong arms carried her, and the smell was familiar despite everything. The white wolf smell, even in human form. She kept her eyes closed, listening. Many footsteps, not wolves now, but humans walking upright. Voices speaking in quiet tones. "How is she?" A woman's voice, worried. "Not awake, but okay." That was Fenrir. Her gift showed up powerfully. She called every wolf within 5 miles. "Wild speaker," the woman said. "I've only read about them in old books. They're supposed to be just stories. She's real and she's my mate." Silence then. "Your Majesty, she's wild." She can barely speak. "She's been living as a wolf for 10 years. How can you possibly—" "She's my mate," Fenrir said again, harder this time. "The moon goddess chose her for me. I felt the connection 2 months ago when she turned 18. I've been waiting for the right time to tell her. This wasn't exactly the right time. No, but those hunters forced your hand. They would have caged her, studied her like an animal. I couldn't allow that." Winter. The name made a small memory appear in Snow's mind. Female, beta strong. "What will you do with her?" Winter asked. "Teach her. Help her remember what it means to be human. Give her a choice." Fenrir's arms got a little tighter around Snow. "She deserves to know both worlds before she decides which one she wants." Snow's eyes opened. She found herself looking right into Fenrir's ice blue eyes. "You're awake," he said softly. "Good. We're almost there." Snow looked around. They were walking through a forest, but it was different from her territory. And there were humans with them, 25 or more, all moving together in order. Warriors. She struggled, wanting down, wanting to run. "If I put you down, will you try to run?" Fenrir asked. Snow showed her teeth at him. "That's what I thought. Snow, listen to me. You can't go back to the wild right now. Those hunters know where you are. They'll come back with more men, more weapons. You're not safe there anymore." Snow didn't want to understand his words, but somehow she did. The meaning came through, even if the exact words were fuzzy. "I'm taking you to my territory," Fenrir continued. "You'll be safe there, protected. And when the danger has passed, if you still want to return to the forest, I'll take you back myself. I promise." Snow stopped struggling, not because she trusted him, but because she was too weak to fight anymore. Using her gift had emptied her completely. They came out of the forest into something Snow had fuzzy memories of. A town, buildings made of wood and stone, paths of packed dirt, and wolves. So many wolves, but these ones wore clothes and walked upright and looked at her with curious eyes. Snow tried to make herself smaller in Fenrir's arms. "Too many, too much, too wrong. She's terrified," Winter said quietly. "I know." Fenrir's voice was gentle. "We'll take her somewhere quiet, no crowds." "Sage, is the healing room ready?" "Yes, Your Majesty." An older woman's voice, kind and calming. "I've prepared everything you asked for." They entered a large building and moved through hallways that all looked the same to Snow. Finally, a door opened into a room that was warm and quiet with a fire burning and furs spread on the floor. Fenrir set Snow down carefully on the furs. She immediately crawled to the corner farthest from the door, making herself as small as possible. "I'll leave you to check on her, Sage," Fenrir said. "But I'll be right outside if she needs me." The old woman, Sage, came forward slowly and carefully. "Hello, little one. I'm not going to hurt you. I just want to make sure you're healthy." Snow watched her with careful eyes, ready to fight or run. Sage sat down several feet away, making no move to touch. "You've been living with wolves for a long time, haven't you? You've forgotten how to be around people. That's all right. We can go slowly." She reached into a bag and pulled out dried meat. She tossed a piece toward Snow, who caught it without thinking, and ate it in one bite. "Good," Sage said, smiling. "You must be hungry. The king said you used a great deal of power today. That takes energy." Over the next hour, Sage earned Snow's careful trust through food and patience. She managed to check on Snow from far away, asking her to show teeth, to hold out arms, to show she could move without pain. When she tried to come closer to check Snow's scars, Snow made a warning sound. "All right," Sage said right away, backing off. "No touching yet. I understand." She left food and water within reach and left, leaving Snow alone for the first time since the hunters had come. Snow ate without thinking. Her mind struggled to understand everything. The white wolf was human, was a king, had been lying to her for 10 years. Her pack had known and hadn't told her. She had a power she didn't understand, and she was trapped in this place of buildings and humans and wrongness. She curled up in the corner, wrapping her arms around her knees, and made a sound of worry that was purely animal. The door opened. Fenrir came in, still in human form, and Snow's first thought was to make an angry sound at him. But he sat down across the room, making no move to come closer. "I know you don't trust me right now. I know you feel tricked. But I want you to understand something. I couldn't show myself in the wild. It's against a law older than both of us. Kings of my family spend part of every year living as true wolves to never forget our animal nature. During that time, we cannot change, cannot break character, cannot be anything but wolf." Snow didn't want to listen, but his voice was the white wolf's voice, and that part of her that had trusted him for 10 years couldn't help but respond. "I found you when you were 8 years old," Fenrir continued. "Someone had left you to die. You were crying, scared, alone. I should have taken you to the nearest pack, but something stopped me. So I carried you to the den instead and you became pack." Snow's eyes burned with tears. She had forgotten how to cry. "I watched you grow up," Fenrir said softly. "Watched you forget human words and learn wolf language. Watched you become fierce and strong and wild. And 2 months ago on your 18th birthday, I felt the mate bond snap into place. You're my mate, Snow, chosen by the moon goddess, and I've been trying to figure out how to tell you ever since. Mate." That was an idea Snow understood, even in her wild state. Pairs that bonded, wolves that chose each other. But she had thought the white wolf was her mate, her partner, her chosen one. And he was the same being, just in a different form. Snow's mind hurt trying to put these truths together. "You don't have to decide anything right now," Fenrir said. "You don't have to accept the bond or accept me or accept any of this. But please let me keep you safe. Let me teach you what you've forgotten. And when you're ready, truly ready, you can choose what you want. Wild or civilized, wolf or human, with me or without me. The choice will be yours." He stood slowly, giving her time to react. When she didn't attack, he moved to the door. "I'll have food brought 3 times a day. Sage will check on you, and if you need me for anything, just call. I'll hear you." He left, closing the door softly behind him. Snow was alone with her confusion, her fear, and the strange ache in her chest that told her the mate bond was real. The first days were hard. Snow refused to wear clothes, refused to sleep in the bed, refused to speak. She stayed in wolf form whenever possible, changing back only when being too tired forced her human body to rest. Sage visited often, always bringing food, always patient. She never forced talking, never pushed limits. Slowly, Snow began to let her be there. Fenrir came every evening and sat across the room talking about his day, about the pack, about nothing important. He never came closer, never demanded a response, just was there. On the 5th day, Snow changed to human form and didn't change back. She sat in the corner wrapped in furs, watching Fenrir with tired eyes. "You stayed human," he noticed. "That's progress." Snow made a sound that wasn't quite a word. Are you trying to talk? Fenrir leaned forward a little. It's all right if you can't remember the words. They'll come back with time. Why? Snow managed. Her voice was rough from not being used. Why lie? It was barely able to be understood, but Fenrir understood. I didn't lie. I couldn't tell you the truth. There's a difference. Snow glared at him. I know it doesn't feel different to you, Fenrir said. And I'm sorry. I'm sorry you had to find out that way. I'm sorry I couldn't prepare you. But I'm not sorry I protected you all those years. And I'm not sorry the moon goddess chose you as my mate. Don't want mate, Snow forced out. That's your choice, Fenrir said simply. But the bond exists whether you want it or not. You can reject it. Reject me and I'll honor that. But you'll always feel the pull and so will I. Over the next weeks, Snow's human side slowly came out from under years of wild living. It was harder than anyone expected. Words came back in pieces, separated from meaning. Sage would hold up an object and say its name, and Snow would repeat the sound. But the idea behind it stayed fuzzy. Spoon, Sage said patiently, holding up the tool. Spoon, Snow repeated. But when Sage tried to get her to use it, Snow just stared at the thing like it was strange, which to her it was. It's for eating, Sage showed her, scooping soup and bringing it to her mouth. Snow watched, then shook her head and dipped her fingers right into the bowl, eating that way instead. It made sense to her. Fingers worked. The spoon was unnecessary and complicated. Sage didn't force it. We'll try again tomorrow. Clothes were another battle. Snow allowed a simple shirt because the town was cold, but anything more than that made her feel trapped. Boots were impossible. She'd rip them off within minutes, liking her tough bare feet better. Dresses made her panic, the cloth stopping her movement. She needs to move freely, Winter said one afternoon when Snow had torn off yet another piece of clothing. She's been running on 4 legs for 10 years. Tight clothing feels like being caged. So they found a middle ground. Loose shirts and pants that didn't stop her. No shoes unless absolutely necessary. Hair left wild and free. Small gives that let Snow exist in human form without feeling trapped. The hardest part was learning to sleep inside. The room Fenrir had given her was comfortable, warm, safe by any human measure. But to Snow, it felt wrong. Too closed in, too separated from her pack. She'd wake in the middle of the night in fear, forgetting where she was, searching for the familiar warmth of wolf bodies pressed against hers. The third night of this, Fenrir heard her worry through the mate bond, and came to find her curled in a corner, shaking and making small sounds of fear. He didn't ask permission. He simply changed to wolf form and lay down beside her, his huge body curving around hers to protect. Snow immediately pressed against him, burying her face in his fur, and finally slept. After that, Fenrir spent every night with her. Sometimes as a wolf, sometimes as a man, but always there. The bond between them grew stronger, even as Snow struggled with her feelings about it. Winter became an unexpected friend. The fierce beta woman treated Snow not as a pet or as a child, but as an equal who simply needed information. You're not less than us because you lived wild, Winter said one day, while they sat in the gardens. Snow was trying to remember the name for the small yellow flowers growing near the path. You're different. You survived something most of us couldn't. That takes strength. Miss Pack, Snow said, the words still coming slowly. Miss Den, Miss Hunting. Then hunt, Winter said simply. Change and run in the forest. No one's stopping you. Fenrir said danger. Hunters. The hunters have been dealt with, Winter told her. They won't bother you again. We found their camp, made it clear that anyone who tries to capture you will answer to the Alpha King personally. You're free to go into the forest whenever you want. You're not a prisoner, Snow. That changed things. Snow began spending her days in the forest, changing to wolf form and running for hours. She'd hunt, eat, rest under trees, and only return to the town when the sun set. Slowly, she found a rhythm that worked for her, but she was still struggling with her gift. The wild speaker ability had saved her from the hunters, but she had no idea how to control it. Sometimes she'd call wolves by accident when feeling strong emotions. Other times she'd try to call them on purpose and nothing would happen. Sage saw the problem. Your gift is tied to your emotions right now. You need to learn to control it on purpose. They began training in a clearing far from the town. Sage would have Snow practice calling specific wolves, not with fear, but with intention. Think about what you want, Sage taught. Not just help, but specific help. Call the scout wolves when you want information. Call the hunters when you want to track animals. Your gift lets you talk with wild wolves as clearly as shifters talk with each other. It took weeks of practice, but slowly Snow learned to control her calls. She discovered she could send not just a request to come, but complicated messages. She could tell wolves where animals were, could warn them of danger, could ask them questions and understand their answers in ways that went beyond normal animal talking. "This is amazing," Sage said one afternoon after Snow had successfully organized a hunt between 3 different wolf packs without any of them fighting over territory. Wild speakers were legendary even in the old times. Most could only call wolves. You can command them, organize them, share complicated plans. "Feels normal," Snow said, shrugging. "Like talking. Because to you it is talking," Sage said. "You spent 10 years talking this way. It's more natural to you than human speech." The breakthrough with human language came unexpectedly. Snow was with Winter in the training yard watching warriors practice fight when one of the younger males fell badly and didn't get up. Without thinking, Snow ran to him. "Hurt," she said, placing her hands on his leg. "Broken here." She pointed to exactly where the bone had broken, though there was no outside sign of injury yet. Winter stared at her. "How did you know?" "Can feel. Body tells me." "Wrong there." She pointed again. They carried the young male to Sage, who said Snow was right. The bone was broken exactly where she'd said. More importantly, Snow had used several complete sentences without realizing it. "The words come back faster when you're not thinking about them," Sage noticed. "When you're focused on something else, your brain remembers how to make sentences." From then on, they used that way. Instead of formal lessons, they'd get Snow involved in activities that needed talking, helping in the healing center, where she had to describe what was wrong, working with the hunters where she had to organize plans, playing with the pack children who asked for stories and explanations. Snow's vocabulary grew fast. Her grammar was still simple, direct, but it worked. She could share complicated thoughts now, even if the way she said it was blunt. "Not stupid," she told Winter one day when someone had suggested making an explanation simpler for her. "Just forgot words. Not forgot thinking." "I know," Winter said. "Anyone who thinks you're simple is an idiot. You've been running complicated pack relationships and hunt plans since you were 8. That takes smarts." 3 months after arriving at Frost Howl, Snow had her first real test of belonging. A group arrived from a nearby territory. Among them, though Snow didn't know it yet, was her father. Demon looked older than Snow remembered. His hair was gray now, his face lined with years. He was there for political talks, having risen to become alpha of his own small pack after years of working his way up. He didn't recognize the wild young woman standing beside Fenrir at first. She was too different from the scared 8-year-old he'd left behind. But when Fenrir introduced her as Luna Snow, his mate, Demon's face went white. "Snow?" His voice broke on the name. That's impossible. Snow died. We left her in the forest 10 years ago. There's no way she could have survived." The room went very quiet. Every wolf there turned to look at Demon with looks ranging from shock to disgust. Snow stared at the man who'd once been her father. She remembered him now. Remembered his face as he'd set her down in the forest and walked away. Remembered calling after him, begging him not to leave her. Remembered the sound of his footsteps fading into the distance. "You left me," she said. Her voice was flat and cold. "To die." 8 years old, left. Demon's face fell. "We had no choice. The pack, they wouldn't accept an Omega. My mate, your stepmother, she demanded it. I had to choose between you and my position. I chose survival." "You chose wrong." Fenrir's voice was ice. "You left a child to die alone in the forest. A child who was pack, was family, who deserved protection." "She survived," Demon said desperately. "Obviously she survived. She's here, so it all worked out." "No thanks to you," Winter cut in. Her voice was hard. "She survived because wolves showed her more kindness than you did. Wild animals were better parents than you were." Snow took a step forward. She was smaller than her father, had been gone for 10 years, but she held herself with a confidence he'd never seen in the scared child she'd been. "Survived," she agreed. "Learned, grew strong, found real pack, real family." She looked at Fenrir, at Winter, at the wolves of Frost Howl who'd accepted her without question. "They chose me. You threw me away, not same." Snow, please. Demon reached out as if to touch her. I'm sorry. I've regretted it every day. If I could take it back? Can't, Snow said simply. Done. Over. You not pack. Not family. Nothing. She turned away from him. The biggest rejection in wolf culture. He no longer existed to her. Fenrir moved to stand beside her, his hand finding hers. The talks are over, Alpha Demon. You and your group will leave my territory immediately, and you will spread word that Luna Snow is under my protection. Anyone who harms her, threatens her, or even speaks badly of her will answer to me personally. Demon opened his mouth as if to argue, then seemed to think better of it. He nodded stiffly and left, his group following. When they were gone, Snow leaned slightly against Fenrir. Thought would feel different seeing him, but just empty. He stopped being your family the day he left you, Fenrir said gently. You know that, right? Real family doesn't leave. Pack, Snow agreed. You real family. Pack home. Winter came forward, putting a hand on Snow's shoulder. I'm proud of you. That took strength. Not hard, Snow said. He weak. Chose fear over cub. Wolves never do that. Even wild wolves protect cubs. It was true. In 10 years of living with wolves, Snow had never seen a pack leave their young behind. They died protecting cubs. Demon's choice made him less than the animals he'd left his daughter with. After that meeting, Snow stopped fighting her human side quite so hard. She realized that being human didn't mean being weak like Demon. Fenrir was human and strong. Winter was human and fierce. Sage was human and wise. Being human just meant having choices. And Snow was learning she liked having choices. She started wearing dresses sometimes, though they were always practical ones she could move in. She learned to braid her hair, though she still liked it wild. She even managed to master the spoon, though she still sometimes ate with her hands when no one was watching. More importantly, she started getting involved with the pack beyond just Fenrir. Winter and Sage. She'd sit in on council meetings, listening more than speaking, but sometimes offering ideas that surprised everyone with their smart thinking. She'd help train younger wolves in tracking and hunting. She'd work in the healing center using her natural understanding of injuries to help Sage. People stopped seeing her as the wild girl who could barely speak. They started seeing her as Luna, as Fenrir's mate, as a valuable member of the pack. But Snow never fully left the wild behind. She still spent hours every day in the forest, still hunted in wolf form, still slept better under stars than in rooms, and Fenrir never asked her to change that. Instead, he joined her, spending his nights as a wolf beside her more often than not. You don't have to do this, Snow told him one night as they lay under an old tree, the stars visible through bare branches. You king should sleep in hall, in bed. I'm also wolf, Fenrir said, and I'm happiest here with you. The hall and the bed can wait. That was when Snow truly understood what the mate bond meant. It wasn't about one person changing to fit the other. It was about two people meeting in the middle, each bringing their own truth to create something new together. And slowly, despite fighting it, she found herself drawn to Fenrir. He understood her in ways no one else did. He'd lived both lives, wild and civilized. He could run beside her as a wolf or sit with her as a man. He was patient with her halting speech and never made her feel bad for forgetting words. 3 months after the hunters had come, Snow found herself in Fenrir's rooms late one evening. She'd come to ask about something, though she'd forgotten what, and found him standing by a window looking out at the moon. Can't sleep? He asked without turning around. No, Snow said. Her words came easier now, though she still liked short sentences. You too, much thinking. He looked at her. Come here, I want to show you something. Snow came forward carefully. Fenrir pointed out the window at the forest beyond. See that part of the woods? That's where I found you 10 years ago tonight. Snow looked at the trees, trying to remember that night. She'd been so small, so scared, so certain she was going to die. You were crying, Fenrir said softly, calling for your father. But he didn't come. So I did. Why? Snow asked. Why save me? I don't know, Fenrir admitted. Instinct, maybe, or fate, but I'm glad I did. Snow turned to look at him properly. In the moonlight, he looked less like a king, and more like the white wolf she'd trusted for so long. The same eyes, the same quiet strength. I'm sorry, she said slowly, for being angry. You saved me, protected me, I forgot that. You had every right to be angry, Fenrir said. I kept a huge truth from you, even if I had no choice, that doesn't erase the hurt. Snow took a step closer to him, then another, until she was close enough to touch. Slowly, carefully, she placed her hand on his chest over his heart. The same spot where she'd rested her head against his wolf form hundreds of times. The same heartbeat, the same warmth, the same safety. "Still you," she whispered. "Wolf or man, still you." Fenrir's hand came up to cover hers. "Always. I'll always be both. Wild and civilized, wolf and man. And if you'll have me, I'll always be yours." Snow looked up at him, at the face she'd learned to trust over these past months. The mate bond hummed between them. No longer something to fight, but something to accept. "Mate," she said simply. "Mine." Fenrir's smile was like sunrise. "Yours if you'll be mine." "Yes." The word came clearly with no hesitation. "Yes." When Fenrir kissed her, it felt like coming home, like the final piece of herself clicking into place. She was wild and civilized, wolf and human, and she was his. The mating ceremony was held under the full moon, with both packs there. Snow wore white furs instead of a dress. A middle ground between the worlds she walked between. Her white hair hung loose down her back, still wild despite months of living in civilization. When Fenrir marked her, completing their bond, over 100 wolves howled their approval. Not just Fenrir's pack, but the wild wolves from the forest answering Snow's call. They'd come to see their pack members mating, and their presence was a gift Snow treasured. 6 years later, Snow stood at the edge of the forest, watching her 3 children play. Her daughter, Kira, 5 years old, with her mother's white hair and her father's commanding presence, was teaching her 3-year-old brother, Ash, how to track. Baby Lyra, only 6 months old, was strapped to Snow's chest in a carrier, sleeping peacefully. Snow had never fully returned to civilization. She still liked to run as a wolf, still hunted in the forest, still slept better under stars than in the Great Hall. But she'd learned to balance both worlds, to be Luna when needed, and wild creature when possible. Fenrir came out of the trees in wolf form, a fresh kill in his jaws. Even after 6 years, he still spent part of each year living wild, keeping the tradition of his family line. Snow and the children often joined him, teaching Kira and Ash to honor both sides of their nature. Snow changed to wolf form and greeted her mate with a gentle touch. Lyra, used to her parents changing, continued to sleep peacefully in the special carrier designed to work with the change. "Mama, Mama," Kira called. "I found tracks. Big ones." Snow changed back to human form and knelt beside her daughter. "Show me." Kira proudly pointed to the wolf track she'd found. "I think it's Uncle Frost from the Northern Pack." "Good job," Snow praised. Her speech was smooth now, though she still liked simple, direct words. "You're learning well." Fenrir changed to human form, setting down his kill. "Our daughter will be an excellent tracker." "She has your instincts," Snow said. "And your stubbornness," Fenrir added with a rare smile. Ash ran over, his gray eyes bright with excitement. "Papa, can we hunt together, please?" "After we eat," Fenrir promised, ruffling his son's hair. They ate as a family, some meat cooked over fire for the children, some raw for Snow and Fenrir, who still liked it that way. It was a perfect blend of their 2 worlds, not fully wild or fully civilized. Later, when the children were playing under Winter's watchful eye, Fenrir pulled Snow aside. "Do you ever regret it?" he asked quietly. "Choosing this life? Staying with me?" Snow looked at her mate, the white wolf who'd saved a dying child and become a king. "No," she said simply. "I have both worlds now. Wild and home, pack and family, wolf and human. You gave me choice. I chose you." Fenrir kissed her forehead. "And I'd choose you again every time. In every life." Years later, when young wolves would come to Luna Snow, feeling torn between their animal and human natures, she'd take them to the forest and change with them. She'd run beside them until they were tired out, then sit with them in wolf form, talking without words. Eventually, she'd change back and speak in her direct, simple way. "You're not half of one thing or half of another. You're whole, both wolf and human, both wild and civilized. The moon goddess didn't make you choose. She made you complete." She'd tell them about being left behind, about living wild for 10 years, about forgetting speech and sleeping in dens and hunting on 4 legs, about being rescued by a white wolf who turned out to be a king, About learning to walk in both worlds without losing either. Some will tell you to pick one nature, she'd say. To be civilized or be wild. But that's a false choice. You can be both. You should be both. That's what makes us shifters instead of just humans or just animals. She pointed toward the forest where her children were running as wolves. My daughter is a princess and a hunter. My sons are princes and pack members. They don't have to choose. Neither do you. The moon goddess made us whole. Wild hearts and human minds. Animal instincts and civilized thoughts. Don't let anyone tell you to be less than all of what you are. And the young wolves would leave feeling lighter, understanding that being torn between two worlds wasn't weakness. It was strength. It was completeness. It was exactly what they were meant to be. Snow herself never stopped being both. She was Luna of Frosthowl and pack member of the Wild Wolves. She spoke in council meetings and hunted in the forest. She wore furs at ceremonies and ran free under the moon. She raised her children to honor both sides of their nature. And at night, when she curled against Fenrir's side, whether in human or wolf form, she was home. Completely, wholly, wildly home. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe for more werewolf romance tales, alpha kings, rejected mates, and powerful Omega stories. Hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Leave a comment below telling me what you thought of Snow and Fenrir's story and what kind of werewolf stories you'd like to see next. Consider becoming a member for exclusive content and early access to new stories. Your support means everything and helps me create more content like this. Thank you for reading, and I'll see you in the next story.